Mayday, Threns Reach is dying. We have... The transmission dissolved into static. The last image burned into Commander Elias Varen's mind was a child pounding on a cracked dome wall, the red dust storm curling around her like a living thing. Behind her, shapes collapsed under the weight of their own oxygen-starved lungs. Then the feed vanished. The bridge of the HSS Aegis was silent except for the hum of life support and the faint hiss of recycled air. Lieutenant Cade, the sensor officer, stared at his console. Signals automated now, sir. Origin confirmed. Threns Reach main habitat complex. Distress level, critical. How bad? Elias asked, though his gut already knew. Cade's jaw tightened. 30 Dominion warships in orbit. 2 atmospheric processors destroyed. The third's failing. Without them. They'll be choking on their own air inside 2 days, Elias finished. His executive officer, Commander Rhea Holt, shifted in her chair. Nearest reinforcements are 3 days away. Protocol says we send the intel and hold position. Elias leaned back, feeling the weight of her words. Hold position. Wait while those people's air thinned, while the Vaer burned the rest of the processors for sport. He'd done it once before, followed the rulebook while a mining station bled out under pirate siege. By the time help arrived, they were hauling corpses into the cold. That memory had teeth, and it still bit hard. What's the civilian count? He asked. 80,000, Cade replied. Unarmed, scattered across 4 domes. No functional planetary defense. Holt kept her eyes on him. We take the Aegis into that system, we're up against 30 warships with nothing heavier than this destroyer's spinal cannon. Elias's gaze drifted to the frozen feed on the secondary monitor, the child at the glass, dust curling around her like a shroud. He heard himself speak before his tactical brain could argue. Plata jumped to Threns Reach. The order hung in the air like a live charge. Cade looked up sharply, Holt's mouth pressed into a thin line. Around the bridge, the crew exchanged brief, unreadable glances, fear tempered by something harder. You're serious, Holt said quietly. I'm not in the habit of telling jokes when people are dying, Elias replied. We're the only ones close enough to make a difference. That makes it our fight. For a moment, no one moved. Then Holt straightened. Aye, sir. The bridge stirred into controlled motion. Nav plotted the FTL jump. Tactical began power redistribution. Engineering requested preemptive coolant reserves for prolonged engagement. It was the language of professionals preparing for a fight they all knew could kill them. Elias keyed the intercom. All hands, this is the captain. Threns Reach is under attack by Vaer forces. Reinforcements are days away. We're moving to intercept now. This is not a suicide run, but we will be facing a superior force. Our objective is to protect civilian life. That means every second counts, and there will be no second chances. Make ready. The hum of the ship deepened as the reactors shifted output. On the forward display, space warped to a pinpoint as the FTL drive spun up. Holt stood beside him as the countdown reached 10 seconds. If we jump in hot, they'll see us immediately, she warned. They'll see us sooner or later, Elias said. I'd rather they see us pulling civilians out from under their guns. 5 seconds. 4. The crew's voices quieted. Elias glanced at the frozen image one last time. That little girl had no idea who he was, or that a single ship's captain had just decided to throw his career, his crew, and his life into the teeth of the Dominion for her. She didn't need to. If they were fast enough, she'd never know how close she came to dying at all. 1. The stars stretched into bright threads, and the Aegis leapt forward into the dark. Transit time, 16 hours. The war room table projected the Threns Reach system in stark blue and red. Holt, Cade, and Lieutenant Commander Harrow from Tactical were arrayed around it. Elias traced the blockade line with a fingertip. They're methodical, Harrow said. Destroy processors, choke out the colony, move on. The ships here, she highlighted 6 smaller contacts, are corvettes, probably running surface bombardment. Those are our first targets, Elias said. We break their grip on the surface. We buy breathing room. Cade zoomed on the planetary surface. Governor's residence here, main evac shuttles here and here. The dust storms will kill anyone outside a dome without environmental gear. Then we make sure they don't have to step outside, Elias said. Holt's tone was dry. And the other 24 warships in orbit? Elias didn't look away from the projection. We make ourselves a problem they can't ignore. Every gun aimed at us is one not aimed at civilians. Approach to system. The Aegis dropped from FTL in the outer belt, shields already humming at full strength. Sensor mask engaged, Cade reported. We're hidden in the asteroid field for now. Plot intercept for those corvettes, Elias ordered. Fast and ugly. The Aegis skimmed between tumbling rocks, engines throttled low. As the corvettes came into range, Elias gave the order. Now. The destroyer surged from cover, its spinal cannon cutting a bright lance through the void. The first corvette folded in on itself before its shields even flared. The second tried to turn, too slow. Harrow's gunners punched through its engines. It spun helplessly into the planet's gravity well. The third fired wildly, scoring the Aegis's shields but not breaking them. Elias ordered a close pass, raking it with autocannon fire until it vented atmosphere. The civilian shuttles below accelerated away from the attack site. Shuttles are clear, Cade confirmed. They're headed for Dome 3. Elias allowed himself a breath. One win. Sir, Holt said, eyes on her console, their fleet is changing formation. They're locking on to our position. Elias's lips twitched in something not quite a smile. Looks like we've got their attention. On the far side of the system, aboard the Dominion flagship, Overlord Kazran leaned forward in his throne-like command seat, for black eyes narrowing. A single human destroyer, he murmured. Challenging the Dominion? His second-in-command bared sharp teeth. Shall I order its destruction? Kazran's gaze lingered on the human ship's vector, studying it like a predator scenting unusual prey. Yes, he said at last. Destroy it, but leave its captain alive long enough to see his failure. Back aboard the Aegis, Elias stood with hands clasped behind his back, watching the red contacts sweep toward them. Helm, he said quietly, let's show them what Deathworlders can do. The Iron Resolve floated at the edge of jump range, its hull groaning faintly under the strain of combat readiness. Every man and woman aboard could feel the weight of the choice they were about to make. Elias Varen stood at the forward viewport, watching Thren's reach grow smaller on the tactical display, a red on a black void, surrounded by a swarm of enemy signatures. The bridge was silent but alive with motion. Crew hands flew over consoles, checking reactor stability, recalibrating jump coordinates, arming the forward batteries. Every movement was deliberate. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a challenge to the Vare Empire itself. Nav, confirm our vector, Elias ordered. Lieutenant Arlen's voice was steady. Trajectory locked. One micro-adjustment completed. Shields will be at full capacity on exit. Elias glanced at his weapons officer. Dane. Main batteries primed. Point defense on auto. I'm holding missile banks for your call. Dane's tone carried no excitement, only the readiness of someone who understood exactly what they were up against. Elias nodded. Good. No one here is fooling themselves. The comm crackled. Engineering to bridge, core temp rising, but stable. Jump field in 60 seconds. He turned toward the crew. Listen well. The moment we drop in, we'll be in their teeth. We'll hit them hard, buy the civilians enough time to run for the shelters, then we'll pull them out. No second chances. A murmur of acknowledgement rippled across the bridge. No speeches, no theatrics. They all knew the stakes. The jump sequence began. Space around the Iron Resolve warped, the starlight bending into a tunnel of silver light. The ship shuddered, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate for the violent shift in spacetime. The sound was more felt than heard, a deep, resonant vibration that settled in the bones. Elias braced himself against the command rail. Status. Arlen's voice cut through the hum. 30 seconds to exit. Enemy fleet positions updated. They're closing the noose around the colony. Dane's hands danced over the targeting screen, reading 28 confirmed Veer warships, frigates, destroyers, and 3 capital class. Their formations tight. Elias narrowed his eyes. That meant discipline. The Veer weren't raiders. They were here for extermination. With a final lurch, the jump ended. Reality snapped back into place, the stars rearranging themselves in an instant. Threns Reach loomed before them, a dusty, wind-swept world wrapped in the fading blue shimmer of its defensive shield. Above it, the enemy armada glittered like a net of steel and fire. Contact, multiple lock-ons. Dane barked. Missiles inbound. Brace, full shields forward. Elias commanded. The first salvo slammed into them with blinding flashes, rippling across the ship's shield grid. The Resolve shook violently, warning klaxons screaming. Shields holding, Dane reported, but not forever. Return fire, Elias said. The Resolve's main cannons roared, twin beams lancing across the void. One Veer frigate's hull split under the impact, venting atmosphere and spinning out of formation. Point defense turrets chattered, cutting down incoming missiles before they could hit. The deck vibrated with the rhythm of war. Sir, they're adjusting. Capital ships moving to intercept us. Arlen called. Let them, Elias replied. We're not here to run. The enemy's return fire was relentless. Plasma bursts streaked past, some glancing off shields, others slamming into armor with teeth-rattling force. Damage reports flowed in, outer hull breaches sealed, secondary systems flickering, casualties minimal, for now. Colonial comm link established, the comm officer said. A frantic voice cut in, half drowned by static. This is Governor Ledhan of Threns Reach. Shields are failing. We have civilians trapped outside the shelters. Please. Governor, this is Captain Elias Varen, Iron Resolve. We're engaging the enemy. Get your people moving to extraction points. They've got gunships over the south quarter. We can't, the voice broke, replaced by the deep boom of an explosion. Losing buildings. The channel died. Elias exhaled sharply. Dane, clear me a path to the surface. The weapons officer's lips curled in a grim half-smile. Gladly. The Resolve's batteries lit the darkness again, tearing through the closest destroyer. It burst apart, scattering molten fragments into the void. A hole opened in the enemy's line. Helm, take us down, low orbit. Keep us moving. Elias's voice was calm, but every muscle in his body was coiled tight. As they descended toward the planet, the devastation became clear. The colony's main dome was cracked open, its gleaming surface marred by jagged black rents. Fires burned in the thin atmosphere, fed by ruptured oxygen lines. Gunships prowled the skies, strafing retreating civilians. Dane, target those gunships, Elias said. Arlen, patch me to Marine Command. A new voice answered, deep and controlled. Major Corps, Marine Detachment. Major, you're going down. 2 squads, priority on the shelter breach. Get those people inside. Understood. Locking armor now. We'll make it ugly for them. Dropship launch bays cycled open, releasing armored carriers into the chaos below. Plasma fire from enemy gunships lit the sky, forcing the Marines to weave through lethal crossfire. Elias tracked them on the tactical map. One dropship took a glancing hit but kept moving. Another landed hard, its ramp slamming down before its Marines had even stopped running. Major Corps is in, Arlen reported. Engaging hostiles. Elias didn't need the visuals to imagine it. Deathworlder Marines tearing through Veer infantry, moving with precision honed by centuries of war. The Resolve continued its strafing runs, keeping enemy capital ships at a distance with constant fire. But each minute was costing them. Shields were down to 60%, and the reactor was edging into red line territory. Captain, Dane said quietly, we can't hold this forever. I know, Elias replied. We just have to hold long enough. Minutes stretched. One by one, the Marine squads called in their evac signals. Civilians packed into armored carriers, children clinging to strangers, wounded hauled aboard without ceremony. Governor Let Han is aboard last transport, Arlen confirmed. Shelters sealed. We've got everyone we can. Elias allowed himself one breath of relief. Helm, bring us about. Plot a jump out, any vector away from their pursuit. The Resolve rose from the battered skies, trailing smoke from half a dozen wounds in its armor. Veer ships closed in, but they were slower to react than before, licking their wounds, recalculating. Elias leaned over the helm station. On my mark. Coordinates locked, the helmsman replied. Outside, the Veer fleet surged forward for one last strike. Mark. The stars stretched, the universe twisted, and the iron Resolve vanished into the void. The Resolute dropped from FTL in a shudder of warped light, its hull creaking as the space around it settled. Before them, Thren's Reach floated like a bleeding wound in the void. The colony's protective dome had collapsed in two sections, its inner structures barely visible through a haze of dust and frozen debris. And the Veer were waiting. 30 warships formed a loose ring, their sleek, blade-like profiles catching the dim sunlight. Their formations were uneven, scattered just enough to lure an attacker into overextending. Elias recognized the trap instantly. They want us to rush in, Elias said. His voice carried no tremor, though every nerve in him wanted to launch straight into the fight. Commander Rafe's eyes stayed fixed on the tactical display. We've got 2 minutes before they notice our exact vector. After that, the swarm closes. Elias nodded once. Helm, keep our profile low. Let's get a better look before we bite. The ship eased forward, angling its reinforced bow toward the gap in the enemy lines. The bridge crew moved in practiced silence, fingers dancing over controls, eyes darting between screens. A burst of static snapped over the comms, then a human voice, ragged with panic. This is Administrator Kalen of Thren's Reach. Oxygen reserves at 20%, medical facilities offline. Civilians trapped in Sector 7. The message cut out. Not jammed, just interrupted by something else. A deeper voice, guttural, alien. Deathworlders. Leave. This world is ours. The transmission clicked dead. The bridge seemed to hold its breath. Rafe muttered, They know exactly who we are. They'll know more in a minute, Elias replied. He turned to tactical. Ordnance, prep ion lances for hull penetration. I want precision, not fireworks. We're not turning this into a debris field while civilians are inside. Lieutenant Chow hesitated. Sir, with those numbers, precision might not keep us breathing. Elias met her gaze. We've got one advantage they don't. Our people don't panic when the air gets thin. We finish this clean. The Veer didn't wait for a challenge. The closest 2 ships peeled from the perimeter, their engines glowing a sickly green. They accelerated fast, cutting across the debris field like predators closing in. Vector intercept, 20 seconds, Rafe reported. Lock them in. Elias' tone was almost casual. We'll teach them what 20 seconds can mean. The Resolute banked hard, its bow cannons flaring blue as twin ion lances streaked across the black. The first Veer vessel took the shot dead center. Its shields flared, collapsed, and its hull caved inward under the kinetic punch. The second swerved, dodging the worst of the blast, but still lost one of its thruster banks, spinning out into the void. Cheers didn't erupt. The bridge knew this wasn't a victory. It was just the opening move. 8 more breaking formation, Rafe said, scanning the readouts. They'll want to box us in. Elias shifted in his chair, eyes narrowing. So we cut through before the trap closes. Helm, punch it. The Resolute surged forward, skimming the edge of the debris belt. Dead satellites and twisted cargo pods spun past, some close enough to scrape their shields. Enemy fire raked the space around them, streams of green plasma searing against the void, but missing by fractions. Sir, contact on the colony surface, Chow called out. Thermal spikes in Sector 7. Could be survivors trying to draw attention. Or bait. Elias considered it for less than a heartbeat. Send drones to confirm. If they're breathing, they're ours to take home. The first combat drones detached from their launch racks, darting down toward the planet. Their feeds came online, ashen streets, collapsed structures, the red dust swirling like angry fog. Then movement. 3 figures hauling a stretcher across an open plaza. The patient's suit was torn, oxygen venting in a white stream. "They're in the open," Chow said. "They won't be for long," Elias replied. "Get me a gunship escort for extraction." The Resolute's forward shields flickered as plasma fire found its mark. Alarms chimed. Forward integrity at 78%. "They're hurting us," Rafe said sharply. "Trying to push us into the belt where their heavies can flank." Elias gritted his teeth. "Then we reverse the herd. Target their lead vessel, overload its reactor." The order went through. 3 seconds later, a concentrated salvo slammed into the enemy cruiser's flank. The reactor went critical, bursting in a bloom of molten metal. The explosion's shockwave caught 2 more Veer ships in its wake, spinning them off course. The opening was brief, but wide enough. Through that gap, Elias barked. The Resolute roared forward, its engines straining. The surviving Veer ships scrambled to close the hole, but not fast enough. The human warship slipped into the inner orbit of Thren's reach. The gunship, Falcon 3, broke away from the hangar and dove planet ward. Its pilot's voice crackled over the comms. On approach to Sector 7. Dust storms heavy, visibility minimal. Elias kept his eyes on the tactical feed. 3 survivors were visible now, crouched behind a half-collapsed wall. Plasma bolts tore into the street beside them. "Multiple hostiles inbound on the survivors," Chow warned. Elias didn't hesitate. "Falcon 3, open your guns." The gunship's cannons lit the plaza in strobing fire, shredding the attackers in seconds. The survivors made their move, sprinting for the landing ramp. "Package secured," the pilot confirmed moments later. The bridge crew exhaled in unison. Elias didn't. "Those are 3 lives out of thousands," he said, voice low. "We're not done." Rafe gave a grim nod. "The Veer are regrouping. 15 ships between us and any clean escape vector." Elias studied the display. The logical move was to retreat, regroup with reinforcements, come back stronger. But logic didn't factor in the child he'd seen on the frozen feed, pounding on the glass. "We dig in," he said at last. "If they want this colony, they'll have to scrape us off the surface." The teeth of the storm had closed. Now came the fight to survive inside them. The storm outside the dome wasn't made of sand. It was fire. The Veer's orbital bombardment had turned Thren's Reach's horizon into a wall of burning atmosphere, lit in furious oranges and deep, suffocating blacks. The air shuddered with every impact. Elias kept low as they moved through the shattered commercial sector. The team's suits displayed a steady scroll of warnings: pressure drops, toxic fumes, heat spikes, but nobody acknowledged them. They didn't have the oxygen to waste. Lieutenant Mara signaled a halt at an intersection. Beyond a collapsed archway, they could hear it, metallic chittering, claws scraping on steel. "Their patrol. 4 of them," she whispered over comms. "Maybe 5. Elias checked his rifle's power readout. 3 full cells left. That meant 3 prolonged firefights before they'd be down to sidearms. "They've got civilians," Anders added, peering through a gap. "I see movement. Small, hunched figures. 2 kids, 1 adult. Shackled." The Veer didn't take prisoners. Not for long. Elias's jaw clenched. "Not while I'm breathing." "Mara, flank left with 2. Anders, you're on suppression fire." "I'll move straight through." Mara's visor dipped once. Orders understood. When they struck, it was fast. Anders's rifle howled with blue arcs, scorching the lead Veer's armor. Mara's team swept in from the side, their weapons chewing through carapace. Elias charged the middle, grabbing one of the insectoids by its upper limbs and slamming it into a rusted support beam. The alien's screech cut short as bone-like armor split. The last Veer dropped, twitching. Silence settled, broken only by the quiet sobbing of the prisoners. "You're safe," Elias said, cutting the shackles. The adult, a woman in dust-streaked miner's gear, stared at him in disbelief. You're human, she breathed. Deathworlder, one of the children whispered, like it was a legend come to life. We need to move, Mara said, scanning the skies. We're exposed here. They pushed toward the evacuation point, an old subterranean tram station buried deep enough to avoid orbital scans. Every step down the cracked corridors carried a new reminder of how little time they had. The air smelled like burning plastic. Far-off impacts rumbled through the walls. Inside the station, the refugees had gathered, 100 at most, cramped in the shadows, clutching bundles of salvaged belongings. Commander Rail, the surviving militia leader, met them at the platform. You actually came, Rail said. Everyone else told us to hold out for fleet reinforcements. 3 days to reinforcements, Elias said flatly. You wouldn't have lasted 3 hours. Rail looked away, guilt flickering across his face. We can hold here for a while. Power cells are low, but we've got air scrubbers and recycled water. Mara was already checking the tram controls. We could push through the lower tunnels to the south cliffs, rendezvous with the Resolve. But it's risky. There have drones in those routes. We can't stay here, Elias said. Every second they tighten the net. Even if we move, Rail countered, you can't take all of us in one shuttle. Elias glanced around the station. Faces stared back, fearful, exhausted, but still burning with that stubborn spark he recognized in every survivor. Then we make more than one trip. The plan came together in sharp pieces. First trip, women and children. Second trip, wounded and elderly. Final trip, militia and able-bodied volunteers. Elias would be on the last one. But as the first tram powered up, the sound came, distant, echoing through the tunnels. A high-pitched vibration that set teeth on edge. They're drones. Time's up, Mara said, slamming the tram doors shut. Go. The station shook as the tram accelerated into darkness. Elias stayed at the rear platform, rifle ready, eyes locked on the black mouth of the tunnel. Shadows flickered there. Quick, darting movements. When the drones came, they came fast. Metallic spheres with bladed legs, moving like spiders, red eyes glowing in the dark. Elias fired in controlled bursts, each shot a bright lance in the gloom. Sparks flew as drones shattered, but more kept coming. Seal the gate, Rail shouted. Negative, Elias barked. If we seal it, we trap ourselves in here. They fell back, step by step, deeper into the station's maintenance corridors. Pipes burst overhead, raining steam. The smell of scorched metal filled the air. Mara's rifle died with a dry click, cell empty. Cover me, she yelled, diving for a dropped Vare weapon. Elias dropped another drone and shouted, We've got 30 seconds, Max. The last of the refugees scrambled into the far maintenance lift. Elias stayed until the last possible moment, then slammed the control to send it rising. He and Mara leapt onto the cables as the drones flooded in below, their red eyes following, the sound of metal legs scraping steel like claws on bone. They climbed into open night air, if you could call it air. The sky was a smear of smoke and embers, and far above, the Resolve was just a sliver against the void. We're clear, Mara panted, leaning against the lift's railing. Clear for now, Elias said, watching the fire line creep closer across the city. Above them, the Resolve began its descent for pickup. And in his gut, Elias knew the next run through the tunnels would be worse. Much worse. The last Vare ship broke apart in a blossom of light, fragments scattering into the black like burning leaves in a winter wind. On the Resolute's bridge, no one moved. No one cheered. Elias sat forward in his command chair, jaw tight. His eyes locked on the tactical display, confirming, twice, that the threat was gone. The planetary defense grid, still limping from the earlier assault, was no longer screaming warnings into the comm-net. For the first time in days, the silence felt almost safe. Status of the colony? He asked. His voice was steady, but it cut through the room like a blade. Lieutenant Reese checked his board. Threns reach reports. Minimal atmosphere loss in Sector 12. For injured in medical triage, no further breaches. Civilian casualties, far lower than expected, sir. He looked up. They say we saved them. Elias leaned back, letting the words sink in. He could still see the child from the transmission, face pressed to cracked glass. Still see the burning sky over the dome. They weren't images he would lose soon, maybe ever. Good, he said simply. Keep a comm link open to the surface. We're not leaving until they're secure. The deck still trembled faintly under their boots. Shrapnel from the Veer cruiser they'd destroyed had clipped their dorsal armor. Nothing fatal, but enough to remind everyone that death had passed close. XO Commander Hale came to his side. Fleet Command wants a report. They say reinforcements will arrive in 22 hours. Elias gave a humorless smile. Late to the party as always. He lowered his voice. I don't intend to hand them a clean story. They need to know exactly how close this came to becoming a graveyard. Hale nodded, understanding the weight behind the words. And the Veer. They'll be back, Elias said without hesitation. This was just a probe. Next time, they'll come prepared for us. Down on the surface, the air was sharp with ozone and dust when Elias finally set foot on Thren's Reach. The settlement's dome, patched and reinforced, still bore the jagged scars of impact. Children clung to parents, some pointing at the Resolute overhead like it was a myth made real. Governor Lyra Marin met him at the docking port, eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. She gripped his forearm in both hands. Captain Varin, we sent that call because we didn't think anyone would answer in time. And yet, her voice broke, but she didn't let go. Elias glanced around. The colonists were watching. Not with fear. With something harder to earn, trust. We don't leave our own, he said simply. The words rippled through the crowd. He hadn't intended them to be anything more than truth, but they seemed to settle into the bones of everyone listening. Later, as repair crews moved through the settlement, Elias found himself in the ruins of the agricultural sector. The thin light from Thren's sun cast long shadows over shredded crops and broken irrigation lines. You've been here before, a voice said behind him. He turned to see the girl from the transmission, smaller in person, maybe 9 years old, clutching a stuffed animal missing one eye. Her gaze was steady. You're the one who came, she said. Not a question. Yes. They said you're from a death world. Elias knelt, bringing himself level with her eyes. That's what some call it. Does it make you not afraid? He thought of the Veer flagship's guns, of the silent moments before a jump into hostile space, of the weight of decisions that could damn or save thousands. No, he said honestly. It makes us afraid. But we do it anyway. She seemed to think about that for a long moment, then nodded, as if cataloging the answer for later use. Good, she said at last. Because we might need you again. That night, under the faint stars of Thren's Reach, Elias stood by the viewport of the Resolute. The planet turned slowly beneath them, quiet for now. Commander Hale approached, holding a datapad. Fleet Command commends your timely intervention. They also want a full debrief on the tactics you used against the Veer. Elias arched an eyebrow. Tactics? We improvised and bled until it worked. They're also asking why you didn't wait for reinforcements. Elias looked down at the planet. Because waiting means counting bodies. I don't care how they spin it in their reports. Our job isn't to arrive late with perfect plans. It's to arrive in time. Hale smirked faintly. You know they'll call you reckless. Let them. We answered the call. That's the only part that matters. The Resolute would remain in orbit until Fleet Command relieved them, but Elias knew the story was already spreading. Across the colony, across the fleet, maybe across the whole network of human worlds. The image of Deathworlders plunging headlong into a fight they shouldn't have won would stick. And maybe, just maybe, the Veer would remember it, too. Epilogue. The message. Days later, in a dimly lit Veer command chamber, a holographic projection replayed a fragment of Thren's Reach's battle. The Resolute, outnumbered and outgunned, cutting through the Veer line like a blade through silk. They're only human, one Ver officer hissed. The commander's eyes narrowed. Humans from a death world. That makes them something else entirely. In the darkness, the recording looped again, Elias Varen's ship, defying odds, refusing retreat. The war wasn't over. But the galaxy had just been reminded that when Deathworlders answered a call, they did not come quietly.